Welcome back, everyone. Snapping around. Playoff edition is here, boys. And so far the playoffs haven't really disappointed much, have they? So far, I mean, you've had some blowouts, but in terms of what's coming in the second games, Dallas picked up a big overtime win last night over the Avs. They've even their series 1-1. Winnipeg held home ice. Kyle Connor with back-to-back game-winning goals. The Jets are maybe proven. I mean, we all had them win in the series, but they're proving some people wrong that they are, in fact, a playoff team. The Leafs had a big showcase in game one of their series. Montreal just defiant, couldn't quite pull it out, but they had a good one. Edmonton almost pulled off the comeback. Minnesota, Vegas kind of just was what we expected. Carolina, New Jersey, same thing. And we get the Battle of Florida starting tonight here. So playoffs are full swing here, boys. Let's start. Let's just get some quick observations of the Colorado Dallas series here. I mean, a 5-1 win followed by a 4-3 OT loss for the Avs. How are we feeling after the first two down in Texas?
Pretty well, exactly how you'd expect. We were talking, Brock, just before we went on air. That overtime was wide open last night. Really could have went either way, but I mean, Dallas, that there was no way that they were going to go down 2-0 going back to Denver. It just kind of seemed inevitable. It's a good game from the Avs again. Obviously, there's a few little mishaps in there that they need to work on moving back to Colorado. But all in all, a pretty good road swing for them. This series is wide open right now.
Yeah, you said it, Trav. Like, we touched on the Avs and what the game two meant. Justin, does game two just not reinforce how teams fan bases actually more or less need to keep level heads throughout the playoffs? Because like an overtime loss hurts regardless, but Colorado's showing that they're not going to be pushed around. They're ready to fight for this series.
Yeah, definitely. Like, watching that game till about 1:15, 1:30 last night, hoping for a better result, but that's just kind of the way things go, especially when you get to overtime in the playoffs and you're playing a really good team in Dallas. They are missing two of their, more stud players, but that's still a really good team on the other side with a really good goaltender. Like, they were fighting for not only the division, but, the President's Trophy up until the very end. So, if you said going into this series that they're taking a 1-1 series tie back to Denver, I think you would be happy. That's a win for pretty much any team on the road heading back home with a tie. You got to learn a lot from this team of pretty much the healthiest we've seen it all year. They're playing tough. Blackwood's playing unreal, pretty much, going save for save with Ottinger there. The second game, like that first game, he made two big saves that led to Avs goals that were just huge, right? So, not too many negatives. There's just a couple plays that, some guys probably want back, but probably the same on the other end too. So I'm happy. Some fans need to chill out, but I think that's every fan base. So it is what it is. And can't wait to see Mason Marchman on the Olympic dive team next Summer Olympics, because I was kind of a big fan of that guy for a bit. But these past two games have been kind of embarrassing to watch as someone on the outside of being a Dallas fan.
That's just playoffs, though. I mean, guys go the extra mile trying to get their team the advantage, but
for sure. But as a fan of the other team, I'm going to chirp because
100%.
He's getting knocked over Like, it's so weak, but I get it. But I hope at some point there's an embellishment call just one way, not both.
That or he just won't start getting the whistle. So, but you brought up Blackwood, first playoff appearance. I mean, he's done unreal so far early in this series. I mean, just like the whole split, you go to the old adage, you're never in trouble in a series until you lose a game at home. So the Avs have stolen home ice. They don't even have to worry about winning another game in Dallas just yet. Like, as long as they take care of business at Ball Arena, things are looking up. And you mentioned the health too of this lineup, Justin. It looked like there was rumblings that it could have happened game 2. I personally was always skeptical of that. I think game 3 is when the whole plan was going to be. Gabe Landeskog, he's activated. He's on the roster. He was a healthy scratch last night. What's the energy going to be like going into game 3? Because I think everyone in the hockey world knows that guy's returning to the lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be exactly like when Crosby returned from his concussion issues in the prime of his career and then put up a 4-point night against the Islanders. That's a night that I will certainly never forget because I remember watching it live, and I just remember the buzz around the arena. You got to think it's a similar situation. I mean, yeah, Landeskog hasn't stepped foot on the ice in 3 seasons. He's the captain of this team. He's the leader of this group. And everything just seems to all the more click when he's in the lineup. So I expect a pretty similar response from the crowd to the Crosby situation many years ago.
We've touched on it how much leading up to the playoffs here. No one's expecting Landeskog to put up a 4-point night in his return. I mean, just getting a point out of him will be a bonus. It's like you said, Trev, it's just the energy level that he's going to bring to that arena. And like going to a guy like Marchment there, Justin, the wrecking ball that Landeskog's going to be his first shift, like, what's the over-under on him getting a piece of all 5 Dallas Stars on the ice his first shift?
Oh, it's gonna be high. Like, he's definitely starting the game. It'll be that whatever second or third line, whatever they decide to put him on, and it's gonna be nuts. I just hope he's able to take it all in and kind of keep his composure about it, because that building might be the loudest it's ever been. Like, it was loud, a couple years ago when they shut out Edmonton with Francouz, and it was really loud when they were absolutely shit kicking the Lightning in game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. This is going to be kind of unparalleled. Like, I always talk about some of these buildings like Carolina that, they take the reading of how loud it is. I guarantee Denver blows that out of the water tomorrow when 92 is standing on the whatever left or right side of that face-off dot, and the puck's about to drop.
There won't be an empty seat during warm-ups, let alone like just everyone on their feet for that opening draw. Like, that's going to be insane. And probably the best thing to help the Avs with that is the amount of playoff experience they have throughout their lineup. Because any other team that would, like, just that energy of that building might throw you off a little, get you a little distracted. But the Avs are such a good, like, they have so much veterans on this team that have been there before and won, that I think they should be fine, and they'll just feed off that energy.
And it's good that they won't be overwhelmed by it all. Like you said, they'll be good. And I don't know how much longer you want to spend on this, but one thing I would like to see from this team going into game 3 is a bit of a shakeup on that second line. I think they've been a little disappointing these first 2 games. They're not really producing, playing well on the defensive side of the puck, but they're really not getting anything going. And, I think it really doesn't matter who Nate plays with. So I think Bednar's fine shaking up that top six in a certain way to try to get a guy like Nichushkin and Nelson kind of going here, because if they're going to get through this series, let alone any other series, they're going to need some of these other guys in the top six to start producing a little bit more.
100%. So see what that game 3 brings tomorrow night. But the other the other Central series is shifting as well. The Winnipeg Jets took a 2-0 lead after Kyle Connor sealed another game with a game winner. You talk about the atmosphere. I mean, was it game one? I know it kind of like went a little. The Blues had a good start and everything, but like, did the atmosphere of the whiteout kind of help the Jets a little? I mean, they looked frozen early on in game 1, but like, they just bounced back and they've just been the better team so far of this series for as good as St. Louis has played.
Yeah, I think the crowd's playing a little bit of a role in those games, but I do think it's been a pretty tight series so far. Both goaltenders kind of had a shaky start in game 1, and then they kind of got her dialed in for game 2 there. So certainly, I think it's safe to say that the Jets have the upper hand right now, but I don't think this series is a write-off yet. Shifting back to St. Louis, just based on how close games 1 and 2 have been.
Is this a series though where, I mean, Kyle Connor's done it so far early on? Are we just going to see where the lack of true top offensive star power really hinders St. Louis in this series as it goes on, Justin? Because right now, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele basically said, we're the top 2 players in this series outside of the goalies, and you have no answer for us.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. Like, that's when I was watching, I didn't see a lot of the game yesterday because I was kind of focusing on the Caps and Montreal, but I was kind of like when I was watching the first game, whatever I did see in the second game, I was, kind of comparing it to the Jets in the first round last year. And I'd say the biggest difference is that the Blues don't have the horses that Colorado did to kind of get a more dangerous scoring chances, but get scoring chances at like the capacity the Habs do. And I think that's kind of getting in the Jets' favor. Like, they went down pretty early game 1 and, let in 3 goals on about 10 shots. And you could sense in that arena that they're like, oh no, like, are we in for this again? But they've kind of settled it down a little bit, and Hellebuck settled himself down a bit too. And I think, with a team that's not as dangerous, I think the Jets will probably be all right. But you're right, like, Kyrou is pretty skilled if he's alive after that Logan Stanley hit. But they don't really have those guys that kind of like a game breaker, I guess you would say, whereas Colorado had 2. You could count Nuke as 3 last year because he was just scoring at will. But I'm interested to see what this series goes back or looks like when it goes back to St. Louis, because I don't really count out Bennington in the playoffs, and this St. Louis team is not one to count out this year because they've proved it since basically the coaching change that they can really turn things around pretty quickly and become a really tough team to play against, shut things down. And that's about it on that for sure.
That's just it. Like, St. Louis is going to make this series tough, but you said it. There's no true game breaker. Kyrou and Thomas are good, like really good players. They're just not the same skill level in terms of taking a game over and actually dominating it that the Jets faced last year. So,
and I thought it was that first game, like the Blues really blew it. I thought they had it in control. They had it right where they needed to, and one bad defensive zone play. For most of that game, I really thought the Jets were like, they're really missing Gabe Vilardi and obviously Nikolai Ehlers, because that's another pretty impactful forward. But I really thought Vilardi was a big miss, at least that first game. But
that's maybe the storyline to watch as this series goes on too, is the depth of the Jets, because they have some top end injury. Like St. Louis might be the deeper of the forward groups, but right now Scheifele and Connor are carrying the Jets, and that might be all it takes to get Winnipeg to a series win here. Move a little more out west. Game 1's happened in the Pacific. Just some quick touches on here, boys. We don't need to go long on these. Vegas, Minnesota. I mean, Trav, I think you said it in our preview. One of you guys did. Minnesota with Kaprizov back and Gustafsson playing at the top of his game is going to make it an interesting series in terms of how each game goes. But ultimately, Vegas is kind of just, they're the top team. And then I said it too with the Kings and Oilers series. Never bet against McDavid because he almost willed the Oilers back in that game 1. So
we might have had the game of the playoffs on the third night last night between the Kings and the Oilers. Now, I didn't watch much of the game. I only watched I wouldn't even say half of the second period, but everybody was talking about it today. How you don't doubt McDavid, how in the blink of an eye he will, quickly turn the game right around. They pull within 1 with 2 minutes left. They tie the game under a minute and a half left, and then LA gets the game winner on a bit of a fluke bounce. Phil Deneau there with 42 seconds left. Just a whirlwind of a game. I watched the highlights earlier this evening, and it's obviously we're gonna get a lot of good games in these playoffs, but that's a pretty tough one to beat.
100%. But
I didn't see much of it either. But I think I said it earlier. The missing Ekholm is really going to hurt, and the instability in net is obviously going to crush them. Like if they had someone back there like a bit more reliable, then they're probably win that game, or it's a bit closer. But you can't go down 4-0 in a game. That doesn't really matter who's on your team. But a lot of discourse around how bad Evan Bouchard is too.
That giveaway last night was horrific.
From our resident Oiler fans, and I guess non-resident Oiler fans, they are not happy with that guy, and I don't blame them from what I see from time to time. He's got a cannon, but like he is a complete liability in his own zone, and missing your top defenseman in Ekholm, that it's not a recipe for long-term success in the playoffs. Playing a team like this, and then you're going to go against a team against Vegas. If you get past the Kings, like you're playing two teams that are somewhat built similarly, where they're big on the back end, they got good goaltending, and they can score kind of whenever they want to.
Yeah, and the fact your number one defenseman doesn't know how to really play defense, like. The fact, too, just last year at this time, everyone was talking about Bouchard joining that conversation of Werenski, Hughes, Makar, and all that. And then he basically, like this year, he's basically just Erik Karlsson, just not as flashy.
Yeah.
Because,
Karlsson was nowhere near that bad a defender in Ottawa, though, I don't think.
No, he was at least like somewhat adequate. Bouchard is just, like you said, complete liability.
Yeah.
And then you just look at the rest of that Edmonton blue line, like there's no one to even like help offset that because they have a bunch of like number 5, 6 guys out there after that.
Like, I don't think they're really in that much of a trouble if that's what we're going to get from McDavid every night. I somewhat question the health of Draisaitl still. I don't know if he looks like he's as he has that jump like he did last year. But I mean, I see some fans on here saying that Evander Kane's a missing piece. Like, if you're focused on a guy that hasn't played all year, that it just probably isn't going to be all there. I don't know if that's like the saving grace that you should be banking on right now.
That just screams desperation of a fan base that knows they're in trouble.
I personally don't think they're in that deep, but I mean, there's obviously some fans out there though.
Oh yeah, like you brought up Vegas. I mean, Kaprizov, who's had an otherworldly start to the season before his injury, he's gonna try to pull his best McDavid act and will the Wild to any type of success this playoffs. But you kind of said it there, Justin. The Vegas is just deep, big, and can score whenever they want. So that might be. I mean, we all said it's gonna be a short series, but it might be shorter than we thought.
Yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Trav.
Well, I was just gonna add on Vegas there. Like, one thing I've really started to kind of notice about them this year as opposed to other years is there's a lot less noise surrounding them this year. I think because they didn't have a huge deadline, but they've just been steady rolling all year. As they do, kind of no worries. Last year they made a lot of moves at the deadline, and everybody's like, "Oh, here we go." Vegas loading up. Well, this year they've sat atop the Pacific for like 85-90% of the year. I guess they didn't blow Minnesota out of the water, but a comfortable win in game one. They're just steady rolling, doing their thing right now, and I think everybody should be on high alert about Vegas.
I think partly they don't really have much assets to do big swings at the deadline right now, but also because of the swings they took last year, it set them up for this year not having to do a lot. So
probably worked in their favor this year too, because they're getting a lot of good kind of depth scoring. Like Howden's got 20, Dorofeyev's got like 30 tucks. Like they've kind of always been by committee because they kind of built their team from just a bunch of casts off, but it really is now this year. But I didn't want to spend too long on them. I didn't really watch the game the other night, but shout out the NHL schedule makers. Just an absolute gong show of like game times here. Like tonight what's that?
It's funny you brought that out because this is the worst I've ever seen it.
Like, so tonight it's 6:30, 7:30, 8:30, 11 for and like those first three are staggered like fairly nice, but last night, I guess I'm complaining more because it affected me, but like you had a game at 7 and 7:30, and then you had two games start at 10. Well, Dallas is an hour behind us. Like, I don't know why that game can't start at 8:30, and you wait till 10 to start right around at the same time as the Oilers Kings. Like, at some point, you think after how many years that this game has been so global, they'd figure it out, but we're not quite there yet, boys.
Well, even the fact that the Vegas Wild game tonight starts at 11, like for Wild fans, that's a 10 o'clock start their time. And like even out in Vegas, that's what?
I don't even understand why. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen the game start that late.
They've had 11 o'clock starts in the regular season, but this is the first I've ever seen it in the playoffs.
Yeah. And it's just like even when they go back to Minnesota, the schedule's a little whack. There's like a 4 p.m. and a 1 p.m. or something. It's like they just seem to take that series and say, yeah, all the bad times go to you. But who knows? Shift to the East. Montreal, Washington, bit of a hype last night around that one. Alex Ovechkin doesn't disappoint and actually breaks a bit of a goose egg that he had. I forget what the correct numbers were, but like he had a pretty high amount of playoff games go to overtime, and he had yet to score an OT winner in the playoffs. I think he had 45 game-winning goals in the playoffs or something, and none of them were in overtime. But he got the winner last night, giving the Caps a 1-0 lead in that series. Just what are we really expecting out of this series? Because a lot of people say it's going to be a slaughter for Washington. We all kind of said it wasn't. Like they're going to be in a dogfight.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, like Ovechkin, just an ageless wonder. I couldn't help but, have the biggest smile on my face last night. I find it just an absolute privilege to watch him and Sid still do their thing all these years later like that. But, to answer your question there, Brock, I think, for me anyways, I'm suspecting a pretty big bounce back from Montreal here in game 2. I thought as far as last night went, outside of the I guess maybe the 10-ish minute window in the third period where Montreal kind of sort of turned it on and got that game tied up, I thought Washington was noticeably better in all areas. I wouldn't say dominant, but definitely just more on par with it. But I suspect that, the big dogs from Montreal are going to kind of bear down here. I think St. Louis is not going to let them, just give up easy on this. And I certainly expect a better effort from them in game 2. But I mean, I got to expect the same from Washington too. I mean, I can't imagine that they'd be happy with letting that slip away into overtime in the third period last night. So, I'm expecting a close one in game 2 as well.
The longer that series goes, the better Montreal's just going to play because of how young they are. They're just going to get the experience and become comfortable.
Yeah, she was a shooting gallery there for a bit. There was like 35 shots on goal combined through like not even halfway through that game. Like Montembeault was playing unreal. So was Thompson. And, Montreal, for how young they are, they battled pretty hard there at the end. Like they were all over them. Like she was pretty close to not even making her to OT. But the Caps, like, a bit more of a veteran team, found a way to come through. It was a pretty exciting game. Like guys are taking pretty big runs. And I was impressed. I expected some pretty good goaltending, but I was pretty impressed with Montembeault, especially because, he's never been in the playoffs. And same with Thompson for being out for, close to a month or 3 weeks or so. Right. So it was a pretty good game. And I know a lot of people are saying slaughter or whatnot. I know we didn't, but I see a lot of people picking Montreal in this series, or maybe it's just like kind of like, they want to pick one upset. I don't see it, but I have seen, a surprising amount of people that aren't so sure on the Caps walking away with this.
Again, the Caps are just team primed to be a bit of one of those like darlings in the regular season and just flop in the playoffs. So we'll see how it plays out. Carolina, New Jersey. Carolina just kind of doing what they do best in the playoffs, just clinically, like nothing flashy, nothing fancy, just control game start to finish over the Devils in game 1 pretty much. They're up 2-1 in game 2 here tonight. I mean, is this kind of just what we expected of this series so far early on?
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't call game one a dominant performance by the Canes, but rather just a real weak showing from the Devils, I think. They got injuries that they're dealing with. Obviously, Luke Hughes and Brendan Dillon both are out of the lineup tonight, which hurts them even more so. But from what I've watched in game 2 here, I just kind of got it running in the background here. They look a little hungrier tonight, but overall, I just don't think it's just not their year. Just things haven't lined up for them, and I still feel pretty comfortable with my my Canes sweeping prediction.
Yeah, it's going to come down to Markstrom and Hischier on how well the Devils do in this series, I think. So
don't worry, next year, this time they'll have 3 Hughes on the IR. So
we will touch on that here in a bit. Final series that's started already, Toronto, Ottawa. The Leafs kind of put on a dominant showing in game 1. Part of that, I think, Ottawa is just young, inexperienced, and it almost just seemed like Toronto wanted to just prove everyone wrong. Like, no, this year's different. Again, I'm not taking much from game 1 with the Leafs involved because kind of like the Jets too, until they actually pull it off, I still don't believe in them.
Yeah, I feel you there. I think this is a little different just in the fact of them playing Ottawa and what I saw. Was it Sunday night? If Ottawa wants a chance in this series, they got to play a hell of a lot smarter than what they were playing on Sunday, because that was just some of, the dumbest hockey I've seen a team play in a while. Like, just they were trying to be a little bit too aggressive, which, like, there's a time and a place and a way to do that, but they were playing a bit too recklessly, and it was costing them. Basically, every time Toronto got on the power play, like, they were making it look like they were playing, the Belleville Sens out there. Like, it was pretty bad, like just letting guys walk in the slot. So, they're already down pretty early here in game 2, and if they need to stay out of the box for one. And need a couple more saves from Allmark. But I mean, some of those, there's nothing he can do when you let, William Nylander, Marner, or Matthews just kind of walk right in the slot and have their way.
Exactly. But see what comes in game 2 here. Trav, you got anything to add on that series?
Not overly, no. I thought game 1 sucked. To be honest, I thought it was just a shitty game. Ottawa, like JC said, just kind of self-imploded. Allmark was not good. I just didn't really think it was that great of a hockey game. Like, I just thought it was, I don't know. Like, the Leafs were good, but I mean, I wouldn't say they were setting the world on fire. It was more Ottawa's own doing, is why the Leafs put up 6. Like, I just thought it was a shitty game. I haven't seen any of tonight's game so far, but hopefully this gets a little more grittier and kind of hard-nosed than whatever the fuck that was in game 1.
Maybe that's what the Leafs want, though, is Ottawa to try to make it a gritty series, and the Leafs will just take the power plays.
I would say that's pretty accurate, because I didn't pay the most attention during that game. I was doing a hockey draft, but it did really seem like Ottawa was getting the better of 5v5 play for a lot of that game. So, again, does not matter when, you get a million power plays and score on half of them. So,
yeah, that's just it. Again, kind of similar to I said earlier, until like the Marchman situation, the refs are eventually just going to put the whistles away as series go on. So
I'm really hoping that's happening, because there's been a lot of calls early on this year that have been very suspect that not enjoying for, like, I get a lot of people want it called the same way, but it's not the same. Like, this means so much more. Like, I think you gotta let a few of these more of these go than kind of what they have.
Yeah, it always tends to happen in round one, at least. Like the NHL wants the refs to crack down and like set the standard, but as the playoffs go on, the whistles kind of get more put in the pocket. So see if that trend continues. But
the NBA 82 game grind is done, and now the real fun begins. The NBA playoffs are here, and it's time for all the high stakes drama, clutch moments, and jaw dropping plays. I can't wait. And if you're looking to make the playoffs even more exciting, DraftKings Sportsbooks has you covered as an official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. Try placing a bet on your favorite player's performance. Will they drop 30 points, 40, or more? It's your call. Here's something special for first-timers. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Make it a playoff run to remember with DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when they bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ice.
let's shift to away from playoffs news from across the league, and maybe the biggest news that happened came out west in Vancouver. Jim Rutherford, Patrick Allvin holding an end of season press conference. Boy, was there some spicy quotes come out of this and just headlines. One, the Canucks are not using their team option to bring back Rick Tocchet. They're still going to try to extend him, but the ball's in his court on whether he wants to return to Vancouver or not. His comments on Elias Pettersson, I mean, considering he probably played one of the best defensive seasons of his career and didn't put up a lot of points, and Rutherford's whole comment was, you got to be able to play both sides of the puck, kind of hinting that he wasn't good defensively, just stinks his top line center, and then goes and sewers themselves with their franchise cornerstone defenseman. I mean, the comments around Quinn Hughes' extension that can be signed this July 1st, made comments about his brother, wanting to play with his brothers, and just basically said everything but that they're going to try their best to extend him. What's our quick thoughts on this so far? And we'll dive into it a bit here.
There's a lot. When I saw that Rutherford clip going viral yesterday, and I wasn't really paying attention too much at work. I just thought he was going to say something dumb, like some old man that probably needs to hit the nursing home like Lou did today. But when I clicked on it and actually listened to him say that Hughes wants to play with his brother and it's not really up to them, like, what a odd comment, and what a way to throw your franchise player under the bus after the season you've had. Instead of putting out fires, instead of making a nice little comment of like, yeah, we're going to try our best to re-sign him, typical, mostly what GM or president of hockey ops, whatever that guy's job is that's what they usually say. And then just to throw him under the bus, like, that is so strange for someone to do. And it's just like, I don't really know what the end game for that comment was, but it's going to make for an interesting offseason. And then to say you're going to listen on Pettersson is another interesting one. And then the Tocchet one, that just sounds to me like they've already talked and he's already out the door if they're not going to use his option, right? Like, it would kind of seem like a no-brainer to bring him back. And I'm guessing he's probably done with everything that happened this year. I can't see why he'd want back there, especially with all these other coaching jobs coming up.
Yeah, he can have his pick of the litter if he wants to around the NHL this offseason. So
He'll find a new home. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
100%. But what's your thoughts on the whole situation, quick, Trav?
Yeah, I'll keep it quick because I don't really have a lot of thoughts, but I'm like, it's just a kind of a headache. Every fucking piece of news that comes out of Vancouver this year is just a riddled drama fest. And personally, I'm just kind of getting sick of listening to it. I mean, I don't really care that much about the Canucks, if I'm being honest. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, like JC said, it's certainly a weird way to end or weird way to go about your year-end presser. But I don't know. It's just a one big drama fest over there. Whatever. Have fun next year, I guess. I don't have much on it.
Yeah, you said it. It's a headache. Justin said it's just the fires. He just threw gasoline on it. This is just one where it's, like you said, Justin, it's an old man kind of. You thought he was just going to spew the normal hockey language out there at the press conference. Instead, he just gives us a month's worth of clickbaits because of everything he said. And to me, this is almost like he's trying to tell ownership that they need to blow this team up right now and go full scorch rebuild. And ownership doesn't want to sign off on it. Because why else are you sinking your top two players in your end of season press conference, like sinking their value too? Like the ball's in Hughes's court right now. He can basically say, yeah, they're trading me to New Jersey, and New Jersey's going to give you pennies on the dollar because they have the leverage in that trade situation. Or Hughes plays out next year and signs in New Jersey as a free agent. You get nothing for him. And we haven't even mentioned like Brock Besser's basically walking out the door. This year's a free agent. They struggled with offense all year, and he's a guy that's annually a 30 goal scorer. I know he's had injuries that have prevented that, but they don't have another top end superstar coming up. So unless you're going to go full on like retool this around Hughes and Pettersson, blow it up.
Probably the wildest 24 months among any team in the NHL. From what everything last year was to what everything this year is to where we are right now with these comments is just a full 180. And we all knew that last year was above and beyond, but yeah, I didn't think they would sink this low.
Yeah. I mean,
the only notable piece of this whole ordeal is that they only finished 6 points out of a playoff spot, and they sat in a playoff spot for a large part of this year. The fact that they did that amidst all this, I find very surprising.
Some of that, I think, is they had their numbers kind of inflated with the likes of San Jose and Seattle and Chicago and Nashville all in the West. Because you kind of compare the two conferences, and there is such a difference between playoff contenders and non-playoff teams in the West. Whereas in the East, like, what was it? Philly finished dead last in the East, and they were still only 12 or 15 points out of a playoff spot. So, like, there's just teams that you could feast on in the West that kind of helped inflate Vancouver, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. And they were shooting out of their minds last year. I think you brought it up a million times last year, Brock, that they're eventually going to come back down to earth, regress to a more average margin, and they didn't really, but they eventually met their maker, and it just hasn't been the same.
No, not to mention like Pettersson signed that massive deal in January last year, and since then has been what, a 60-point player essentially.
Cratered.
Like, you traded Miller thinking that would help alleviate some of the off-ice issues for Pettersson to just break out of the slump, and that didn't help anything. And then you just seen as the year went on, Quinn Hughes just looked more defeated every time I saw clips of him. Like, I think he's ready to move on out of that franchise because this is the prime of his career and he wants to win.
Not to mention, on top of all this, you got a goalie that can't really stay. A star goalie. Demko is really good. A guy that can't stay in the lineup. Like, we can't trust to stay in the lineup. It's been said that he's got something that he's likely going to deal with for a long time.
Yeah. So how much do you trust Lankinen? Like, can you trust Lankinen to do what he did at the start of the year for a full season?
No, you're just basically you're having your Shelov's conversation, I think, all over again. I think Lankinen's a lot better and a lot more consistent than Shelov's was ever going to be. But like, let's be clear, like, no one thinks that Lankinen's going to do that again, or at least he's not going to do it consistently again and again enough for this team to be good. Because from everything we've said the last 10 minutes, they're not going to be as good next year if they move on from all these pieces. Like,
nope. Again, it's personally blow it up and try your best to get his best odds to get Gavin McKenna.
Nothing.
It's either control your own fate, like control your own fate by getting pieces to quickly rebuild, or let Quinn Hughes walk next summer for nothing. And then regardless, you're going to be in on the Landon Dupont sweepstakes in 2027. Like, the next few NHL drafts are going to be stacked at the very top with top end talent. It's just a matter of like how quick you want this rebuild to go. Because you can easily make it you can make it a Toronto Maple Leafs rebuild where it's quick 1, 2, 3 drafts of top 5 picks, and all of a sudden you're a true contending team. Or you could be like Chicago or Buffalo and just constantly just toil around in the basement.
Yeah, you need to make smart decisions with these guys that are likely going to leave.
Again, I bring it back to the Rantanen trade earlier in the season. Like, McFarland basically said, okay, I'm not leaving this up in the air in terms of what's going to happen with you at the end of this year. Like, we're not just playing this out. I want to control kind of this season and the future for a little bit here. And so he went and he got Martin Necas and Jack Drury, who have extra control on their contracts. They weren't going to expire. And like, yeah, the whole situation played out differently. Like, Rantanen signed 8x12 in Dallas, whatever. But at the time in Colorado, there was no guarantee. And McFarland just said, okay, I'm going to take the more guarantee secure route here because it's not just this season. Like, we have McKinnon, Makar to drag us through anything. But I got to think about the next 10 years here too. So.
One last thing. I don't know. Are we going anywhere after this? Like,
we could probably wrap after this here.
All right, I got one question for you guys. So there's been kind of a lot of head coaching jobs open up. Out of the ones so far this year, which one would you guys want, or which one do you guys think is the most like attractive or promising out of Hawks, Flyers, Bruins, Ducks, Rangers, Kraken? And do I even need to bring up the Canucks? Because that's probably not going to be. But they're another one too. So there's like 7 or 8 jobs already now. Like,
I'd say Ducks. Like you saw at the end of the year, Carlson, McTavish started to really turn the corner. You got a good young goalie in Doe still. You got young, solid pieces on that blue line. I think the Ducks.
I'll say Seattle, just with the young guys that they got now, and they're gonna get another big one here in this draft, probably a top 4 or 5 pick. So I'll say them. I'd like to say the Bruins, based on that they they pride themselves in being a winning franchise, but God, if upper management really fucked that organization up. So no, I'll say Seattle.
Plus, management in Boston does not draft well.
No, that too.
How can you trust them to make a good pick this year in what is a deep top 10 draft, but still they'll find a way to screw that up.
They could have 3 in the top 10 in a row and they'd screw it up.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the 2015 draft.
That's going to be brought up for
forever.
The
Nobody's forgetting that.
and Zaboral, the 3 picks right after those guys was Barzal, Connor, and Shabbat.
So bad. And they don't change those, like, Neely and
yeah, they're still there.
What's his name? Sweeney still at the helm. But I think I agree with you, Brock. Like I was saying briefly about it before, I probably would say the Ducks too. I would be also intrigued probably by the Blackhawks though as well, because I think there's a lot of growth and young talent there. Another probably top 3 pick coming in, which is, no one knows really how this draft's going to go. And you hopefully got your goaltender of the future. And so I think, there's a lot of, possibilities with that, but I think the Ducks would be like a prime spot for a young coach, or I don't even know if it's really a young coach. Like, not sure really where you go with that, because
Tocchet.
Yeah. Quenneville.
He might be the coach to do that.
I think, do you think this is the year that Quenneville gets back? We're going long. Sorry. That's my last one. I'm done. Because the Rangers, to me, really seems like a spot that, I don't know. It looks like
I could see that fit now that you bring it up.
Them, like,
really see that.
Maybe the Bruins, depending what they do in this offseason. But those are just their 2 teams that, like, let's be real, they add 1 or 2 players in free agency, they could be right back to where they need to be. And I don't think Quenneville's coming back for a rebuild or a young team.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, if he's back, it's the Rangers. But no, you bring up the Hawks, though. I'd touch on that in a later pod, but I got some interesting things on what the Hawks need to do this summer to avoid another year in the basement. So, but we'll thanks everyone for tuning in this week, snapping it around. Be back next week. Most of the first round will be concluding or into the final games of the series. So we'll wrap things up on that and just see how teams are going. So give us a like, subscribe, download. Thanks again, and catch you all next week.